Hey Hancock, I'm getting bullied. What should I do?
You aim straight and make sure he can't use that thing for nothing but a flap to keep the dust out of his butt crack.
Okay, please, just stop.
What's the problem? I thought it was pretty good advice. It's no secret that superhero movies rule the world. With Marvel and DC pumping out new movies and TV shows every other month, it's obvious that superheroes now dominate much of the entertainment industry. Back in 2008 though, before the MCU had overtaken the planet, but after an onslaught of horribly reviewed films the genre produced throughout much of the early 2000s, superhero movies had much less of a grip on society. They were, however, still relevant enough to warrant parodies, which brings me to the topic of today's video, 2008's Hancock. A movie that may not be completely forgotten, but has certainly fallen into relative obscurity. Starring Will Smith, who plays the titular character, Hancock follows the story of a man who, despite possessing extraordinary power, has become more characterized by his deeply flawed personality and actions. He's abrasive, easily angered, reckless, and inconsiderate, and much of the public views him as more harmful than heroic. Just listen to him.
I'll break my foot off in your ass, woman.
Through the introductory phases of the film, we see just how poorly people perceive him. Public figures and citizens constantly complain about Hancock and his recklessness, about how inefficiently he saves people or stops crime. All the negative backlash he receives helps characterize him as an outcast. He even lives in a trailer on the outskirts of the city, personifying his ostracized status. Basically, he is alone, or at least feels that he is, and the film portrays this loneliness as the cause of his abrasiveness, that he acts and even feels alone and detached despite wanting to be a part of society.
That deep down you behave badly because you are lonely. I think deep down you want people's acceptance. You save people's lives, and they reject you, and so you reject them back.
The film, largely through other characters, describes Hancock as someone who, underneath his rugged exterior, wants to be good, who is destined to be a hero, as Ray says.
Who are you talking to, Ray?
Stop pretending that you do not care. You have a calling. You're a hero, Hancock. You're going to be miserable the rest of your life until you accept that.
He knows that he can be better and he wants to be better, but first he has to overcome his own strength to do so. He has to recognize that despite being able to do whatever he wants, being able to take whatever he wants, he should still do the good and honorable thing.
You know, if you want something, nobody can stop you from taking it. You just take it, right? I can relate to that.
Towards the end of the film, Hancock witnesses a robbery and comes face to face with one of the perpetrators. Looking at this robber, Hancock is reminded of how he used to be. Like a man holding a gun, nobody could have stopped him from doing whatever he wanted to do. He could have simply taken whatever he liked, and as a result, often ignored the criticisms of regular people.
She's right. She should sue you.
Yeah, she should sue you. Yeah.
Okay, well, you should sue McDonald's, because they fucked you up.
Of course, though, he didn't have the most nefarious desires. Even before he underwent his character growth, he didn't want to just go around killing people or robbing them through the threat of his power. But as he explained to the robber, he understood that he could if he so desired. And that's where his change presents itself. Over the course of the film, Hancock learns how to be a better hero and that he should not do things simply because it is gratifying in the short term. He realizes that sometimes, even when you have the power to simply avoid a hardship, it may be better to endure it if it helps you in the long term. Sometimes doing the hard thing now will make you better off later. Sometimes you need to resist your own desires to improve yourself, to not quit just because it would be easy to do so. And one scene in the film perfectly captures this idea. The most notable moment in the film for me comes during Hancock's time in prison. After shooting a basketball, the ball flies out of the fence and Hancock jumps out of the prison to get it. Here, in this moment, he has escaped. He could simply fly away. The prison can't hold him. Nobody can. But still, he willingly goes back inside because he knows he hasn't gotten where he wants to be yet. This is perhaps the most introspective moment in the film. Hancock knows he can be better, and he's finally accepting that. He's finally willing to truly improve as an individual. Up to this point, he had been more performative in his corrective actions in meeting with Ray and willingly going to prison. He was just going through the motions, not really internalizing them. But here, in this moment, he had truly decided to change. For me, seeing this man who, just weeks earlier, would only do what he wanted on the surface, now deciding to limit himself reveals so much about him and about the film's themes. People often decide not to do things because they are physically incapable of them. But what happens when you can do anything, when you can simply take whatever you want? Just as Hancock understands, the only thing stopping you would be your own self-control and morality. Isn't that right?
Really trying to turn over a new leaf.
I can see that. People think Hancock simply parodies the stereotypical superhero, making fun of their flamboyant designs and larger-than-life personalities, and while it certainly does that, as I've explained, it also offers far more, particularly in the way it uses Hancock to explore deeper questions about power and personal improvement. In a lot of ways, though, despite mocking them throughout the movie, Hancock actually condones the standard idea of superheroes.
I will fight crime, butt-ass naked, before I fight it in that way.
As I've explained, the film initially characterizes Hancock as inconsiderate and destructive. However, through the perspectives of other characters, most notably Ray, it frames these qualities in direct opposition to the standard hero. And as he evolves into a more traditional image of a superhero, these negative qualities fade, revealing the film's position that, while superheroes often seem corny and unrealistic, they are ultimately good. We see this idea largely explored through Ray, who, from his first scene with Hancock, acts as his guide, teaching him how to be a better hero and challenging him more strongly than the other characters. From his introduction, trying to convince a company to give away their medicine for free, Ray is established as the film's example of a good man. I mean, even Mary says so word for word.
Ray is a good man.
As a result, he represents much of the film's morals, how a good man should act and feel, and if a good man endorses something, at least in a film that goes so far out of its way to establish a character as one, it must be good as well. Consequently, the fact that Ray sees Hancock's potential as a standard superhero shows the film's views that superheroes are good. We see this as he tries to get him to be more like those in comic books, such as when he gets him to wear a costume and coaches him on how to land and talk to people, and as Hancock moves closer to being that standard idea of a hero, the better he becomes, further illustrating that, despite how goofy superheroes can often be, we should still aspire to conduct ourselves like them. All in all, Hancock initially seems like nothing more than a comedic superhero movie, but beneath the surface explores far more interesting ideas than many may have thought. It reveals how it's easier to be complacent and ignorant of your own flaws when you're powerful, how sometimes, even when people have the ability to do whatever they want, when they can simply take what they'd like, they shouldn't. Improving ourselves, getting better as individuals is difficult, and sometimes, even when we have the power to avoid it, walking the more challenging road is what makes us better. The film, as it turns out, isn't really much of a parody either. Sure, it points out some of the goofiness of superheroes, but it ultimately views them as good and aspirational, coinciding Hancock's improvement as an individual with his progression towards a standard hero, essentially saying that the closer we are to being like a superhero, the better we are. So, Hancock, who are you? What do you do?
I'm Hancock, and I drink and stuff.
All right then.